It's done.
Connor McDavid! It's not real!
The goal of the year?
Panarin!
Part of the past. The celebrations? Forgotten. The history?
Vegas Golden Knights!
History. We're back to a blank slate. Clean ice. All that matters now is what happens next. The Stanley Cup playoffs.
Eastern Conference Final begins Wednesday.
We took it all. We brought them to our land. An endless night, ember hot and icy cold. The rage of the earth. We made this curse. Carved it in the blood on our backs. We did not see. We could not, but she did. And in the end...
What will I become?
Senua's Saga. Hellblade 2.
Play it now with Game Pass.
The following is an exclusive presentation of News Radio KMAN, your home for K-State athletics. It's game time. This is The Game on News Radio KMAN.
Today I'm wearing a t-shirt that simply says Play Sandstorm. And I'm wearing it for a couple of reasons. I have it for one main reason. That is because it's kind of funny. Like at basketball games or baseball games, I'll get texts or tweets that say, "Hey Mitch, play Sandstorm." Like I'm in control of the sound and all the music and stuff. I just get a kick out of it every time I get that. Which I will typically either tell Brett or elbow Brett, say, "Hey, the folks want Sandstorm." Sometimes we get it, sometimes we don't. It's strategically played. But I thought the t-shirt's fitting. But also I wanted to come in today, and AJ, I could just look at AJ, just kind of angle the right way and just kind of point at the t-shirt. Just point at the t-shirt to Play Sandstorm, because we have the Sandstorm button ready to go at any time. No. This is not a Sandstorm show, AJ. This is not a Sandstorm show today. Because unfortunately, another frustrating loss for the Batcats, and this comes in the first round in Arlington as K-State loses to KU 2-1. Welcome to a Tuesday version of the game. Mitch Fortner, and of course the star of the hit new game show, Stump the Shaw. AJ Shaw joins us across the glass here today. And we take you up to 6 o'clock. That is pregame coverage of the Kansas City Royals, Game 2 of 3 against the Detroit Tigers, as the Royals look for their 5th straight win today. They are now at 30-19, 11 games above 500. I don't know if I would have predicted that heading into the year, especially this early, but they are 11 games above 500 with that pretty average offense. It's pretty average. We're going to talk a lot of Cats today, but also Rashee Rice getting some good news today. We'll be coming up in hour number 2. Talk a little basketball, a little football in hour number 2 as well. But, of course, the main story today is what took place earlier today in Arlington, Texas. I was hoping for the victory. We would play Sandstorm a couple of times, as you do when K-State beats KU. That's just what you do. It doesn't just happen on this show. It doesn't just happen in Bramlage Coliseum. It happens in households all across this county and this state. Even in other states where alumni live. Across this country is where that glorious tradition continues to this day. K-State's pitching was phenomenal today. Phenomenal. I mean, just great stuff from K-State. And this is a pitching staff that, to put it lightly, has had its ups and downs. Has had its glorious outings from starters to clutch finishes at the end of a game like a Tyson Neighbors, who since he's come back from his injury and had that real battle late in a game, which was a couple of weeks ago, he has been pretty solid. K-State pitching today gives up 2 earned runs, 5 hits, and of course 9 innings, striking out 10, just walking 3 batters. Josh Wintrope has had himself sort of an up and down year. He would like to have a better ERA, but he pitched over 3 innings and gives up 1 run on 3 hits. It was just a solo home run, a couple of strikeouts, a lot of balls in plays, but the defense had a really good day. Cole Weisenbaker, Jackson Wentworth, and Tyson Neighbors. Tyson did give up officially the winning run for KU, which was in the top of the 9th inning. That was a deep fly ball to left field, but I thought that was misplayed by Chuck Ingram. Chuck ends up jumping at the wall, and I think he just misjudged it. Because I think it hit kind of in the middle of the wall next to him, and he didn't need a jump. He could have caught that in sort of a, kind of a heart-racing routine play. But the play wasn't made, and it ends up being a triple for Ashby of KU, and then with a sac fly, the KU brings in the game-winning run, and the Cats fall in the game 2-1. Once again, where K-State just kind of gets punched in the gut is the offense, and I got to give credit to Shaw. Well, bringing up another Shaw, the starting pitcher for KU, who just had that wicked slider. Oh, that cutter, that slider. It was some wicked stuff. It was really good. And both, for the most part, I mean, K-State's command was on point for the most part. KU had its ups and downs. K-State ends up with more hits, more opportunities to score runs, more opportunities to put their opponent away, but K-State wasn't able to cash in. Now, offensively, it's not going to be fair to pick on everybody. Kalen Culpepper was great, 3 for 4. He stole a bag. David Bishop has been pretty underrated this year. Your first baseman for the Cats, tall first baseman, and this year he's batting .260. It's not bad. He hasn't had maybe the season he was dreaming of with K-State this year, but I think he's been pretty good. Been a solid first baseman, and he had a great day at the plate, going 3 for 4. He had a double, which was, by the way, K-State's only extra base hit. But what hurts is when you're 1 for 3 with runners in scoring position, you're 2 for 13 with runners on, and those 2 hits end up leading to K-State's only run. And I felt like, once again, the K-State offense just kind of got in their own way. The situational hitting. The types of at-bats where your heart, it's a big game. There's a lot riding on your at-bat. Maybe your heart is racing a little bit, and there just wasn't a whole lot of clutch plays, once again, by K-State's offense. Now, I will say, maybe you could argue this. It's the old, K-State's got them right where they want them. Right where they want them. Yeah, you lose to KU, but look at this history. Not a great track record for Pete Hughes in the first game of a Big 12 tournament. Pete Hughes is now 0 for 5 in the first game. But what has happened after that first game? Well, what has happened is 2021, the Cats lost to TCU in that first game. They went on to beat Baylor, beat Texas Tech, eliminate both of those guys, and then they run into TCU once again, who hadn't lost a game. They beat TCU in that first game. They force a doubleheader, and then they end up losing to TCU, but they get to the semifinals. I remember watching that in 2021, thinking, holy cow, where is this coming from? What K-State ran into was just not having enough pitching at the end of that run, and they lose 17-7. 2022, K-State loses in the first game to Texas Tech 5-3. After that, they beat West Virginia, eliminate the Mountaineers. They beat Texas Tech, which ends up eliminating Texas Tech. And then, unfortunately, a nail-biter, but they lose to Oklahoma after having a shot in I think it was the top of the 10th inning, having a shot there to potentially win the game. And they just don't come up clutch there, but they make it again to the semifinals. 2023, K-State loses to TCU. I swear, Pete Hughes and the Cats, K-State baseball, they run into TCU just as much as the men's basketball team does in the Big 12 tournament, it seems like. But last year, lost to TCU. It was an ugly blowout. Rough loss. They come back and beat the number 1 seed, 6-0 in Texas. They eliminate Texas. Then they beat KU 7-1. They eliminate KU. They get back to the semifinals and lose to TCU 7-3. My memory isn't the sharpest. I wish my short-term memory was way better. But there was a common denominator in those last 3 years, and I think what it was K-State the last 3 years has hit for power, setting records with home runs hit in season. The last 3 years for K-State have been the best 3 seasons in program history in hitting home runs. They had the power hitters. They had just better offense. But the issue was they just kind of didn't have enough pitching at the end of that run to carry K-State to potentially getting to a Big 12 championship game. Can 2024 potentially be the same story? I think it can. I'm not going to argue that K-State doesn't have the talent. But now I worry about just what K-State has ran into the last month and a half, and that's a lack of offense. That lack of offense is in every game. But they didn't really have enough of it today. And again, I'll give credit to KU's pitching. I mean, they threw some of their best bullpen guys, but so did K-State. KU just had a couple of more big plays in them to get it done. Really just one. One big play more than K-State had to get it done. A couple of swings goes differently for K-State. You have a different result. And we're probably not having this kind of tone in our conversation to lead off this show. We're talking about K-State starting 1-0. And the way the TCU West Virginia game ended up, K-State's on a bye tomorrow. They're in a bye tomorrow. They don't play, and then they get ready for the winner of TCU Oklahoma on Thursday. But unfortunately, that's not the result. Chuck Ingram goes 0 for 3. Brennan Jones, which was just shocking to me because he's been just so good this season. Getting on base, he has drawn a ton of walks, and when he gets on base, he's going to try to swipe second base. Brandon Jones did not get on base today, which is just crazy to see. But Brady Day had an 0 for 3 day, but he did have a walk. Nick English did come up with a single, but he started 0 for 3. And by the way, I noticed the play-by-play did not ever once mention that you had brother versus brother once again. And the series ends up 2-2 instead of K-State winning 3 games to 1. And I feel like I pick on Chuck Ingram too much, but that, again, and I said this yesterday, it is a microcosm of just the trajectory of K-State's offense, the way it's been this year. Literally the first half of the season hitting 400, and literally the second half of the season batting under 160. The numbers have just continued to drop. I mean, K-State I think it was over 3 weeks, went more than 3 weeks without a home run. It is a deeper porch, of course, out there at Globe Life Field. But K-State, what I'm getting at is K-State's got to find that spark with the bats. And if they don't, that's where I worry that K-State is really going to run into what you weren't expecting once we entered the month of April. And that is now the committee has to have a conversation about what to do with K-State. And I want to get to that a little bit later on in the show. That'll most likely kick off hour number 2. About what situation K-State's in right now. Are they in a do-or-die situation? Can they survive going 0 for 2 in the Big 12 tournament? Is this a must-win tomorrow against West Virginia? And I'll say this. Tomorrow's game is going to be very interesting against West Virginia. That'll be a 9 a.m. first pitch, pregame at 8:30 once again here on K-Man. Where it gets interesting is neither team today threw their best pitcher, as in best starter. It's going to be Owen Borma. I don't think it's official or nothing's been announced yet, but I would bet a lot of money that it's going to be Owen Borma.
It has to be. It's do or die.
Yeah, and he would be at his full rest. Mm-hmm. He would have his full 5+ days. He'll have his rest. And West Virginia is going to start Derek Clark, who carved up K-State. When he started a few weeks ago, it was his Saturday game. Because when K-State West Virginia played earlier this year in Morgantown, remember, K-State won that Friday game. Owen Borma was the starter, and West Virginia did not end up throwing their Friday guy. They instead put up Hayden Cooper, who was good, but K-State was just a little bit better that day. I mean, Derek Clark has an ERA of under 2.
He's very good.
He's extremely good.
Yeah.
So you got to imagine that this is going to be a very important pitcher's matchup where Owen has to find a way to outduel Derek Clark. And the offense also has to help him out.
And the bats are going to have to get him runs, and if they get him one run, well, he's going to have to give up 0. So a lot of pressure is going to be on Owen tomorrow to come out there and pitch probably the best game of his career. But he's done it before, Mitch. We've seen him do it before. We've seen him do it this season. Come out in a big game and pick up a win. He beat West Virginia in that Friday game.
Yes, he did. 7 innings. Gave up 3 earned runs, 7 innings, striking out 8. Had enough offense behind him to get it done. I'm trying to look to see who all had hits in that game. Culpepper, Brady Day.
And it was Culpepper today who was a big chunk of your offense, had 3 hits. He and Bishop had 3 hits.
But outside of that, I mean, nobody else for K-State had a multi-hit day. Honestly, I think there was only one other hit.
Yeah.
I lost my box score here.
Yeah, it was 7 hits in total, and 6 of the 7 hits came from 2 guys.
Yeah, the only other hit was from Nick English. You're right, yeah. So you just had too many gaps in the lineup that wasn't getting on base.
Yes. And they left 10 guys on base, I think I read somewhere.
Yes, they did. K-State did leave 10 on base. They had base runners on every inning 1 through 7. They had at least a base runner on at some point. And that's what I'm talking about, just kind of wasted opportunities.
Yeah.
There were a couple of times, with 2 outs or whatever. But, leadoff guys getting on, walks or getting some hits, just struggled to bring them around. Only had the 1 extra base hit. That's just what I'm saying. The offense has to spark.
I'm going to use some of my Mitch Fortner optimism here by saying if there is a benefit to that, you did have a lot of guys on base. Hopefully you keep that going tomorrow, but this time you capitalize off that. So I'm trying. I hope I'm making sense when I say that.
Here's Derek Clark is a lefty.
Yeah.
K-State has struggled.
That's true.
Against lefties, and they did today. Mm-hmm. They got some free passes that helped, that built some opportunities. But Shaw for KU. Mm-hmm. I mean, that slider was vicious.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought the play-by-play on the ESPN Plus broadcast did a good job of just kind of describing that pitch, because especially to lefties, it was so hard to get contact. Because it starts out like it's kind of behind you on the release because of the arm angle. And then when it sweeps across the plate, it's a ball the entire way until it's a foot away, and then it's a strike. I thought there was a tad bit of a generous strike zone for the pitchers. Gave up an inch or two, maybe a little extra around the edges, but K-State got the same calls. So I don't really have any complaints there. But the Cats got a hit. And they're going to face another lefty. Culpepper did great today, and he got a couple of hits off of Shaw, a lefty, but he's K-State's best hitter against lefties. And then you would probably go Brady Day, and after him, it's a lot of struggle. Mm-hmm. It's been a season struggle to hit against lefties, and Derek Clark is a lefty.
I don't want to say his slider is Chris Sale level filthy, and if Troy were here, he'd probably get what I'm saying, but that slider was pretty unhittable. That was pretty unhittable. And you're right, that's a very difficult pitch to pick up, particularly from a lefty. Yeah.
So coming up at 5:10, we'll further discuss what kind of situation K-State is in right now. Is it a must-win? Can they survive going 0 for 2? We'll just kind of discuss how I'm feeling about that, because K-State did take a slight RPI hit. So we'll go over those details coming up at 5:10. When we come back, the Big 12 has made their official vote on if to settle or not on House versus NCAA. That was a case we talked about yesterday with John Kurtz. Those details are coming up next.
We took it all. We brought them to our land. An endless night, ember hot and icy cold. The rage of the earth. We made this curse. Carved it in the blood on our backs. We did not see. We could not, but she did. And in the end,
What will I become? Senwa Saga. Hellblade 2.
Play it now with Game Pass.
Oh, AJ, I appreciate that update. Shout out to Scott Kitch and his crew for Wamego Boys Golf. It looks like they're going to go back-to-back on 4A state championships. The Red Raiders running it back.
Big day. Brecken Miller comes in 5th. Caden Tyner comes in 7th. And Spencer Heck comes in 11th. So, yeah, big day. They had a good day.
Yeah, if you take a look, and I saw that, I put up an article on the K-Man website yesterday just kind of where they stood after day one, and they had such a commanding lead.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to talk about having to blow it to just take second place.
Yeah.
I mean, they were ahead by 23 strokes after day one, and they built that lead today. There's no doubt about that. Wasn't as crisp of a day as, like, the team overall. As I saw as you were reading that, I was taking a look at the leaderboard as well, and, yeah, well, Amigo, I think no doubt. It's like we're waiting for for day two to like officially end, and then they'll be crowned with the state championship, or they're going to win it.
Yeah, they're up 11 strokes on McPherson, 19 on Circle, and 23 on Bishop Miege. Or Shawnee Mission, Bishop Miege.
Just Bishop Miege. Yeah, you could cut off the Shawnee Mission part. They just go by Bishop Miege. There's too many of those Shawnee Missions, Blue Valley schools. I'm talking about the Kansas City area. So, what was the other part? Oh, yeah. This could be a pretty big week for Wamego because they not only qualified for a whole bunch of kids for state, for track and field, softball also won the state title last year, and they're going to start on Thursday.
And then they got track too, right? State track?
State track, that'll be Friday, Saturday in Wichita Cessna Stadium. Manhattan High, they've got to be one of the favorites for 6A on both the boys and girls side.
They got some guys and some gals that can run, man.
I mean, they have Hannah Pellin and Harley Omley. They both just keep breaking records, their own records, their school records, some of them Centennial League records. Who knows what they're going to do at state? Are we going to start talking about state records?
You were not a track guy, I forgot, correct?
I was.
Oh, you
for
were?
4 years. I
Really?
was a sprinter, and I did some long jump. I was terrible at long jump. I was all right in sprinting. I was on the 4x1 team.
You set any NCKL records?
No. No. I only got one gold medal ever in track, and that was on the 4x1. That was just one time. So I was fast for my size, for sure. I didn't have the stamina, and I don't know what my coaches were thinking, but I was put on the 400 and also the 4x4.
Oh.
So not once but twice would I run a 400, and I just didn't have the stamina. I didn't have the gas. A lot
of people probably wouldn't have the gas.
I was good for 200 meters. After that, I'm gassed, and I'm losing my lead. Like I always be in a lead after after 150, I'd be in the lead because I started out really well. Like I could get the wheels
Strong
turning.
starter, not a great finisher.
Oh, not at all. Not for the 400. Not for the 400. Just I didn't have the gas. Didn't have the stamina. Also, I messed around in practice all the time. I didn't take it as seriously as I should. I just used track to stay in shape for football.
Yeah.
Because you got to pass like conditioning tests,
True.
which had to do with some running and some exercising, and you got to finish in a certain amount of time. So I wanted to make sure I was still in good shape. Didn't want to sit on the couch all spring. I easily could have. I wasn't really a baseball player after middle school, so so I did track. That and I wanted to meet girls. And track meets are a good place to do that.
That's a good point. Did you meet any girls?
I did.
Did you get lucky?
Did I get lucky? Yeah, I got some phone numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got some phone numbers sometimes.
Attaboy 17-year-old Mitch.
Track meets, I do remember them being fun, though. They were a lot of fun, but football was my favorite sport. Well, speaking of, there's no real smooth transition here. But yesterday we talked to John Kurtz about, we needed to bring the expert on to talk about House versus NCAA, a case that could certainly shape how, how college athletics is governed for the foreseeable future. I mean, it could be a complete shift in the way things are done. And I believe this was first reported by ESPN's Pete Thamel. He says Big 12 Conference became the first named party in the House versus NCAA case to vote to settle that case and related antitrust cases, forging a path to a new era of college athletics. So we're talking Big 12 presidents and chancellors. They voted virtually today to unanimously approve Texas and Oklahoma was not in that vote. So the other 4 power conferences in the NCAA Board of Governors, they're expected to vote in the upcoming days. This is supposed to be done by Thursday, and it is widely expected to pass, which is going to set a new course in college sports, and there's a couple of areas on where that's going to change. As establishing a framework for schools to share millions of dollars with their athletes in the future and create a fund of more than $2.7 billion to pay former athletes. So basically, it's a class action of athletes that weren't allowed to benefit on name, image, and likeness. And that pool of money, which is mostly, I believe, going to be paid for by the NCAA, is going to be $2.7 billion. That's going to be paid out to those athletes that are involved in this case. Most of that money will be generated from the NCAA holding back, on an annual basis, because it's going to be paid out over 10 years. And that is the NCAA holding back like TV fund or like money generated from the NCAA tournament. Holding that back from schools to pay off this money. Now, the other part of this case, and I just briefly mentioned that, and what I feel is the most interesting part about this is the revenue sharing part of this. This is pretty big. And what the difference is schools being able to pay these student athletes directly. That is a major change. Wouldn't have even thought about this becoming a thing 10 years ago and well beyond that. And schools, possibly near as much as $20 million, they would have to budget to be able to pay athletes right out of their own pocket with the revenue share of name, image, and likeness.
It kind of reminds me of the money that was given. I don't want to compare this to the concussion settlement, but kind of what the concussion settlement was with the NFL and the NHL. That's kind of what it reminds me of a little bit. Although I don't think that's a great comparison. But that's what it's kind of reminding me of here.
There's still a lot of questions to be answered. I don't know if that is the best comparison. I don't know if there really is a like strong concrete, hey, remember when this happened? Well, this is similar to what's going on here.
Yeah.
Because, like salary caps, because this is another part of that. Like, okay, so is there going to start to be a salary cap on NIL? These details, and I wish I had the answers, because I agree with John. We talked about this yesterday in hour number 2. This could be very confusing if you're not listening closely, if you haven't been paying attention over the last few months as this has progressed, these talks or whatever. It could be kind of confusing on what's all going on. And what makes it even more confusing is there's still a lot of loose ends. Like, what does this mean for Title IX? How does this money get cut up to particular sports? Because we know football and men's basketball are the two most important generators of funds.
And that was the
athletics.
big question for years while they were talking about potentially compensating student athletes. Where is the money going to go?
Well, what about the other sports? What about the female sports?
Yes.
How does this get divvied up?
Exactly.
And, $20 million, that's an interesting number because for some, that's a ton of money. Mm-hmm. But if you also think about it from an athletic standpoint, if you think of professional sports, $20 million in the NFL will get you one good player for one season.
That's basically the fifth-year option for a top 10 pick.
But here's the challenge for the schools. Budgeting.
Yep.
Finding that money. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of money for some. Mm-hmm. There's some others out there that's, it's kind of whatever. Oh, we got that every day. Need $20 million? Here you go. No problem.
And I think that's where the revenue sharing plan comes into play now that I was reading.
Now, I'm sure if with the limit, like a Texas who could have a very large payroll, would not have a problem coming up with $20 million year in and year out. Maybe the number makes them a little bit upset. But it's going to be a challenge for a lot of the other schools to be able to compete with that kind of money. So when it comes to that competition part of things, I don't know if that really changes a whole lot. But what could potentially change is how does this affect NIL? Mm-hmm. Do collectives start to Is their role more important? Does it lessen? Will they be necessary moving forward? I think absolutely they will. I think that's maybe one of the easier questions to answer, but just how much? How much are they going to be needed moving forward?
And the question I think now is, how does Congress get involved now in this? Because they've been looking to regulate NIL.
Well, and another part about this is certainly limiting the amount of lawsuits the NCAA has to take on. I mean, it's just, when NIL first became a thing, I mean, this really snowballed in them pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a number of rulings, if I remember correctly, what was it, 3 years ago when this went through?
It was June of 21.
So there you go. It was almost 3 years ago, and I think there were multiple rulings in a matter of 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah. It hit, and like John said yesterday, I mean, it hit them like a bullet train almost.
But the plan right now is, so if this $20 million budget per school in the bigger leagues, like the Big 12, SEC, Big 10, ACC, that won't go in effect until the fall of 2025.
Yeah.
But now, schools are going to have to scramble on figuring out how to adjust to these new guidelines.
I apologize there for interrupting you, but with the ACC and its problems now, that's a big question for them because they're in a pretty difficult situation right now as well. We don't know the future of that league.
Well, no, and it's because of a terrible media rights agreement. Mm-hmm. And who was it that made who's Florida State, Clemson? Are they the ones,
yes.
big ones right now?
I think they're the ones that are suing.
Yeah. I think it's only a matter of time before the ACC falls apart.
Yeah.
I don't know when.
I'd have to agree with you.
I know that's right now kind of in a stalemate because I think one of the lawsuits has been delayed because there's multiple lawsuits just there, right there.
I believe I saw one in the North Carolina Supreme Court. I'll have to look that up.
Because Clemson, Florida State is one thing. What if, when I say lesser, like a Pitt, an NC State, a Louisville, and just thinking about like kind of football, that guideline with football, they could really get that snowball to grow when they're like, okay, we're done with the ACC. Let's go to the Big 12 or whatever.
So the Florida State just today, or this was yesterday, appealed their lawsuit to the North Carolina Supreme Court. And it was filed last Friday.
We'll get another nerd here on the show, and what I mean by that nerd is I'm sure Troy Coverdale has been following this play-by-play. Mm-hmm. And we'll definitely revisit this, but this is the whole $20 million per school paid directly in revenue share, paid directly to student athletes, won't go into effect until 2025. We're probably not going to get like concrete details on more about what exactly that, how that gets divvied up and all that. Like we're still thinking that's 6 months out before that gets settled and figured out and we have concrete details. Let's take another break. When we come back, guys, it's Tuesday. You know what that means. Jabroni of the Week is next.
Know your role and shut your mouth. You jabroni. You jabronis hit the jackpot.
That Hollywood blonde jabroni, Hulk Hogan.
Al, is this jabroni's name?
Jabroni of the Week.
Well, here it comes. It's the moment you've been waiting for all day. I mean, I'm sure you wake up on a Tuesday, you look at the calendar and say, it's Jabroni of the Week day.
I did wake up this morning doing that, thinking that.
Was it a physical calendar like on your wall, or you were just talking about your phone? You just like
it was reminder? It was my mental calendar.
Okay.
Kind of like, I have my mental sports trivia thing in my head as being the Shaw. Well, I got the mental calendar in there too.
You know what? I feel like there's an ego building with this whole Stump the Shaw thing. You've been parading around the whole station today, bragging about your win-loss record.
Yeah, and Paul, our IT guy, was claiming I cheated, which is a complete lie. I didn't cheat.
I mean, I can't see the monitors. Because I definitely have my questions and answers on our little thing we call Newsroom, and you could easily look at the same thing I am.
Well, here's what I'm going to do next time before we play the game. I'm going to snap a photo on my phone and put it on our game Twitter account just to prove to the people that I'm not cheating.
Hey, I can't see your hands. Like you got a mouse like that's next to your right hand. You could easily just kind of, if you're real sly, you can maneuver and then start clicking around without me really noticing. Keep your hands in the hair the whole time. Maybe we'll have somebody like, just kind of watch from your side.
All right. We'll get Steven to keep an eye on me.
Well, let's get to our Jabroni of the Week. We have 3 dishonorable mentions and culminate with the big Jabroni of the Week. We'll start with Xavier Worthy. As a dishonorable mention, Chiefs wide receiver rookie was just drafted back in April out of the first round, and he coming from Texas. Boy, did he get quite the introduction to Kansas City a few days ago, because he just moved to Kansas City like a week ago.
Yeah.
He's barely been in his new place, and his car was stolen. Right out of the parking garage of his building. It was just taken right out of there.
So he's the jabroni for getting his car stolen? Or the dishonorable mention?
No, he's dishonorable mention for that bad luck.
Okay. Makes sense.
I mean, that's not even enough time to get to all the good barbecue places yet.
Yeah.
Now you don't have a car to get there.
Rough week for Chiefs wide receivers, I guess.
He also mentioned, it was mentioned in the story, Fox 4 wrote the story and said that the apartment building is called Two Lights Apartments. Two Lights.
Two Lights.
I don't know if that sounds fancy or if it sounds bad. But he's going to be
He's an
NFL
NFL rookie.
player. It's going to be really
nice. It has
nice,
to be a
I'm
nice
sure.
appointment, yeah.
Okay. My second dishonorable mention, I'm going to go with Ricky Stenhouse Jr. from NASCAR. May have noticed this over the weekend. They had their all-star race. Winner takes home $1 million. It was at North Wilkesboro Speedway. I think that's Charlotte. Anyway, they get 2 laps in, and he and Kyle Busch get a little tied up there on the track and ends up wrecking Busch. Busch, after the race, he's all hot. He comes over. I think Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is sipping on a Diet Coke or something. He's just hanging out, watching the fireworks going off. Here comes a mad Kyle Busch. They get in each other's faces. They're jawing back and forth. And then Ricky comes with his right hand and just hits Kyle Busch.
Ooh.
And Kyle never touched him. But apparently this goes back to like a previous race and another wreck, and they already had some beef. There was a brief conversation, and now they hate each other. The thing is, though, Ricky Stenhouse, I mean, the punch was unwarranted. Like, it wasn't him defending himself. He just cold-cocked him. Mm-hmm. The thing is, now he's facing a very lengthy suspension and potentially a ban because of that punch. We'll see how that plays out. My last dishonorable mention, I'm going to go with Caitlin Clark's teammates on the Indiana Fever. I was watching their game on Saturday after I got home from K-State baseball. And I started watching. I was like, oh, Caitlin Clark's on. Let's see how she does. Looks really good. I know she didn't have a great start, but the last couple of games she's done really well. Mm-hmm. She is absolutely better than the rest of that team. I mean, that team is garbage without Caitlin Clark. They aren't going to beat a soul without Caitlin Clark.
Outside of her and the Boston girl, yeah.
They're still 0-4, though. But
yeah.
Caitlin is by far their best player. But it's gotten to the point now where she was caught on a hot mic, like complaining about her teammates to the head coach. Christy Sides is her first name. In the last game, I think it was against the New York Liberty. I mean, she just started kind of taking matters in her own hands and like not passing, just taking the shots, and she was hitting them. She's by far their best player. Mm-hmm. I kind of feel bad about Caitlin Clark. She doesn't hide it too much that she gets frustrated with teammates. And who's going to win at the end of the day? It's going to be Caitlin Clark.
Yep, she's the franchise.
But finally, my Jabroni of the Week is going to go to the Somerville High School baseball team. They're out of South Carolina. And a couple of days ago, this was over the weekend, they were playing in their state semifinal game against Ashley Ridge. I don't know who Ashley Ridge is, but she has a high school named after her. So congratulations to Ashley on that achievement. But anyway, the Green Wave, that's Somerville. They fall behind 4-0, and then they take the 6-4 lead, and they win in extra innings by that score. So here's the celebration. Everybody's going nuts. And then after that's all said and done, after the commotion comes to a rest, then the umpires and officials there from the state start looking at the books.
Oh, boy.
And there's a rule because Somerville played back-to-back days, and when you have a pitcher come in back-to-back days, that second game they cannot go over 75 pitches.
Yeah, it's the pitch limit.
Well, the game prior, he only threw 2 pitches. In that semifinal game, he threw 83. They did not notice until after the game.
Oof.
But after that was determined, The officials said that Somerville will have to forfeit and their season comes to an end because they had a pitcher that threw too many pitches, 8 more than the limit. And they didn't notice until after it was all done.
That's terrible. Terrible.
So sorry, Somerville High School baseball team. You are my Jabroni of the week. That's going to wrap up hour number 1. Hour number 2, talk a little K-State basketball. Well, maybe a little football thrown in there as well. There's a lot of top 10 talk. But when we come back, K-State baseball, is it a must-win tomorrow? We'll discuss when we come back. You're also going to hear your local news. We'll be there in 3 minutes. You're listening to The Game.